Genuinely, one of the most exciting things that Nintendo could do moving forward with the Nintendo Switch 2 is to announce a whole bunch of different kinds of Switch 2 editions. Imagine if at any point in any Nintendo Direct, you could just anticipate a brand new Switch 2 edition of your favorite Switch game with a bunch of new content. And maybe it's not even just new content, but it's just like an upgrade, and you get to play it as an upgrade. Imagine something like Age of Calamity, which ran pretty poorly on the Nintendo Switch, and it got over to the Nintendo Switch 2, and in anticipation for Age of Imprisonment, that game would be phenomenal. So here on the screen are the list of Nintendo Switch 2 free upgrades that we're getting. We've got ARMS, Captain Toad Treasure Tracker, Mario Odyssey, Mario 3D World plus Bowser's Fury. A lot of things that you would probably anticipate to see. Both of the 2D Zelda games that ended up being on the Switch, Link's Awakening and Echoes of Wisdom, the Pokemon game Scarlet and Violet. Then you've got Mario Deluxe, and then two games in which might throw a wrench into this whole story. The Game Builder Garage and then Big Brain Academy. Those games are very interesting to have Switch 2 editions. Because of all the games that they could really do, I was really shocked to see those two on the list, and Captain Toad, and ARMS, to be honest, although both those games did sell decently well and were fan favorites within the first couple years of the console's lifespan. They're not necessarily big enough in terms of franchise, scope, size, or just popularity to where I would have anticipated personally to see them be on the Switch 2 as Switch 2 editions. If you had told me going into it that there were going to be a bunch of free upgrades, I would not have picked those games at all. So keeping all of that in mind, the oddities of how many games there are only 9 here that are for free, and then the different types, the different varieties. Of course, you've got your Mario, which makes so much sense, but then you have some other games that aren't here that might seem like they should be, and then games like Captain Toad or Big Brain that I am just shocked to see here. So what I'm going to do today, and I think this is very interesting, and I had this idea pretty much from the first time I saw this Direct, I am going to go to the Wikipedia website, I am going to look up the highest selling Nintendo Switch games, and I am going to go from top to bottom until I run out of first party games, and I am going to say whether or not I think this is worthy of a Switch 2 edition, or whether I think it will actually happen. So starting off, obviously we have Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, and I would be flabbergasted if this game did get a Nintendo Switch 2 edition, or at least if it does, it would come much later down the road. But let's for now say that we're anticipating these couple first years. So starting off, I just can't believe that Mario Kart World looks as good as it does. It looks phenomenal, and sure, the $80 price point is a deterrent for most people, and it is a lot of money. But Microsoft today, Xbox came out and they said, our games are now $80, and they raised their prices a lot. Probably having to do with some of these tariffs, but also Nintendo did set that precedent. I wouldn't be surprised if Nintendo hadn't done it. Xbox does this anyways, but that precedent was essentially set by Nintendo. So I'm not going to complain about any of the other prices because, hey, that's an industry-wide thing now. Sony will follow suit. I'm pretty confident in that. But Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, I really don't think it's going to be on the Switch 2 as a Switch 2 edition. It has a ton of content and would be amazing if they decided eventually to go back and let that kind of be like a remaster for this game. Let it be the ultimate Switch 2 edition, the ultimate version of this game for the Switch 2. But I'm going to say it is very, very unlikely for them to do it within the next couple years, just because they obviously want Mario Kart World to be the main and only Mario Kart focus on this console. But at the same time, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe sold insanely well, and it sold over almost 70 million copies on the Nintendo Switch alone. And so if you think of it in that perspective, maybe if Mario Kart World doesn't do as well as they hope, they will try to get some of that hype back from Mario Kart 8 Deluxe and just keep that going. Then we've got Animal Crossing New Horizons at number 2. This game sold a lot as well, and I can't see it coming to the Nintendo Switch 2 as a Switch 2 edition because I think they're just going to want to try to put out a new game first. They could never have imagined how amazing Animal Crossing was going to sell on the Nintendo Switch, and honestly, I think they really just want to keep that hype going, keep Animal Crossing in the limelight, and try to establish it as a big pillar for Nintendo, to keep it as a massive IP and just keep the hype rolling from the 2020 era. So how do you do that? You could essentially put a Switch 2 edition on the Nintendo Switch 2, or you could essentially just make a bigger, better game, put all of the content from that first one into this game, make it the ultimate Animal Crossing experience for the Nintendo Switch 2. A lot of people would be hyped. It would be a system seller for sure, so I don't think they're going to do Animal Crossing New Horizons. Next up, we've got Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. I have mixed feelings about this because unless they decide that this game is going to take a long time to get the next installment, especially because I've been predicting I think that's going to be a long ways away, especially now that we know Masahiro Sakurai, director of this series, is working on Kirby Air Riders. And no, that isn't the type of game in which Masahiro Sakurai would have to devote all of his attention to. I'm sure he could simultaneously develop both, but he doesn't necessarily seem like the type of guy to me who wants to split his attention on games. He wants to give everything his wholehearted 100% effort, and I think if Smash Brothers is in development right now, it would be a crime not to let Sakurai do it, and I think they're waiting on him until he's done to start development on that game. We're probably a good 3 to 4 years away from a new Smash Brothers, and I honestly think a Switch 2 edition of Ultimate with all of the DLC included would be a great way to tide us over. That game was the ultimate experience, right? How do you go up from there? It's really hard to, so just don't. Why would you? Just keep it going on the Switch 2. 120 frames per second Smash Ultimate, are you kidding me? Fixed online, are you kidding me? That is a system seller if I have ever seen one. So yeah, I honestly do think this is more likely than not to see a Switch 2 edition of this game within the next year. The next couple ones have already been confirmed. We've got Breath of the Wild already confirmed, Mario Odyssey confirmed for a free upgrade, then we've got Pokemon Sword and Shield, in which I say absolutely not. This game will not get any sort of Switch 2 edition because, number 7, Pokemon Scarlet and Violet are getting Switch 2 editions for the free upgrades. We know Tears of the Kingdom is getting one, Super Mario Party is next, and we know that game will not get it because Super Mario Party Jamboree is getting one. New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe is getting a free upgrade as well. Number 11 on this list of best-selling Switch games at 15 million mind-boggling units, we have Nintendo Switch Sports. This is a fascinating one to me because Nintendo wants to keep this type of series in the limelight as long as possible. They want to just randomly drop these and let it sell bananas. This is the type of game that doesn't make me think there was an entire development team just really focusing on it. I guess that's a possibility, but it just seems like they didn't have a lot of people working on this, and that's why they didn't get so many sports out there. But it sold well enough and was pretty popular, although the general consensus, at least for the United States, was that it was very underbaked. And for it to be a very underbaked game that sold this well, it makes you wonder if a lot of casual fans would even care to buy a Switch 2 and then get an upgrade for this game. Sure, there are always going to be dedicated fans for every single game, no matter what, that would really want an upgrade, but I'm gonna lean towards no on Switch Sports. I think it's just more likely that they do some other Blue Ocean new title that's just brand new, built up from the ground up for the Switch 2. That makes a lot more sense to me than just porting over the Switch 1 version, I guess. Then we've got a fascinating one, Super Mario Bros. Wonder. This truly does depend on what their plans are moving forward. If they're deciding to try to use the same engine or the same type of style of Mario game for this next console, then it could be very, very soon that we see a brand new 2D Mario game in the style of Wonder, in which we don't even have to wait for a Switch 2 edition because a brand new game with a bunch of new levels is just around the corner. I could see that being very possible, but I honestly do think we're going to see a new 3D Mario before a new 2D Mario, and we probably aren't going to see 3D Mario until early as next year. So for Mario Bros. Wonder, I think it's actually pretty likely that we do see a Switch 2 edition of this game. 120 frames per second obviously is gorgeous, and I can't wait to play it on my Switch 2 if this does indeed happen. This is the type of game that you could truly advertise with the Switch 2 edition. Put a bunch of new levels, a bunch of new badges, even add a couple characters. Maybe you could put in Rosalina or Pauline. That would be really fun and worth the price in my opinion. I think if they can get Mario Party Jamboree and Kirby and the Forgotten Land out there and get a bunch of new DLC for that alongside the Switch 2 upgrades, then this is the type of game that they really should push. Mario needs to be pushed more on this console, I think, and Wonder was a phenomenal game that sold very, very well. A lot of people will double dip, and a lot of newcomers will want to see what's the hype. So yeah, I am actually putting my weight behind Mario Wonder getting a Switch 2 edition. Then we've got Ring Fit Adventure, the weird phenomenon that happened on the Nintendo Switch. Another 15 million copies sold for this game alone. I don't think we're getting a Switch 2 edition of this game. If anything, we get a sequel or something similar, another type of spin-off, something completely different. To be honest, I wouldn't be surprised if Nintendo just never referenced this ever again. It was a flash in the pan kind of thing and they just moved forward. But I don't think we're getting a Switch 2 edition of this, specifically because of the Ring. I mean, everyone who bought it prior wouldn't get some free upgrade because they would have to get a new ring basically for their new Joy-Con, so I just don't think it's very realistic. And for that, we're just going to move on to the next game, which is Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Let's Go Eevee, another very similar thing in which they use the Joy-Con controller. I honestly don't think that we're going to do any more Pokemon Switch 2 editions for the next year, which eliminates the next 2 games on this list, Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, and Pokemon Legends Arceus. Legend Arceus, honestly, I could see it if they wanted to hype up ZA a little bit more, but because ZA is coming and we know ZA is getting a Switch 2 edition, I just don't even think they're going to bother with the old game. But at least it was worth talking about, right? So then we've got Luigi's Mansion 3 at number 17 on this list. Luigi's Mansion is one of my favorite series of all time. If you've been following my channel for any amount of time, you know how much I love this game in particular. I would love to see a Luigi's Mansion 3 Switch 2 edition, but I'm really leaning towards no. I think the actual studio behind this game, Next Level Games, is going to want to pump out a Luigi's Mansion 4, and I know I am frothing at the mouth at what they could do with this console's hardware, because this game is so gorgeous on the Nintendo Switch. Imagine what they could do building from the ground up for Luigi's Mansion 4. I am so excited for that game. So I really hope it is coming soon. I hope they announce it very soon because it's so possible. It's really not that unrealistic for us to think that within the next couple of months we could hear something about Luigi's Mansion 4. Next on the list, we've got Splatoon 2, and I'm going to talk about Splatoon 3 here as well, because Splatoon 2 obviously would not get the Switch 2 upgrade. The Splatoon 3 game would obviously be the one that gets it, and I don't think Splatoon 3 or 2 is going to get a Switch 2 edition. If they do, it would just be some sort of free upgrade in which they were like, yo, if you want to play these games on the new console, go ahead, let it be free. It would be cool. I don't know. I think the Switch 2 is going to get its own Splatoon game very soon, within the next year. I think they will honestly try to get it out there as quick as possible because this is a very popular series and it's one of their only big multiplayer shooter games that really appeal to a very specific kind of audience that might want to get in on the Switch 2. Not to mention the mouse controls could be put to use for this game, and I think a lot of other people that are big on mouse controls would want to double dip for this type of game. So if they do some sort of Switch 2 edition, it would really just be to kind of show off the hardware even more, and it would be something that comes very early in the Switch 2's life, but I think it's not going to happen. I think they're just going to move forward with Splatoon 4. Moving on, we've got 3D World Bowser's Fury, which is already confirmed for a free upgrade. Mario Party Superstars isn't happening because of Mario Party Jamboree. Then we've got Super Mario 3D All-Stars. This is an interesting one. It's obviously not going to happen. It's just not. Let me say that first. It's not going to happen, but humor me for a second, right? What if they decided to bring this game back, add Super Mario Galaxy 2, upgrade the graphics for the Switch 2 hardware? It's not happening, but a man can dream, can he? This one's fascinating. Super Mario Maker 2 on the Nintendo Switch 2 as a Switch 2 edition with mouse controls. This was the game that most people were saying would be a launch title, or at least come within the first year of the console's life because of the mouse. It makes a ton of sense for them to want to push this game over, add some new content, put some new levels in there, new types of gameplay, maybe add in a Wonder version, or do they want to just move forward with Super Mario Maker 3? I don't know. That's a very, very interesting topic because there are so many development teams at Nintendo and a lot of them share these IPs, right? The Super Mario team works on Mario, but they also work on different types of games as well, right? Donkey Kong Bonanza is probably being developed by the Mario Odyssey team right now. I'm pretty sure also that the Splatoon team also works on Animal Crossing and ARMS, and so like if they were to ever develop a sequel to those games, they would want to really give those games a lot of attention and time. And so Animal Crossing didn't get a game on the Wii U because they were pumping out Splatoon games. And then Animal Crossing got a little bit delayed because they didn't want to crunch, probably because they were simultaneously developing DLC and Splatoon 3 while also working on Animal Crossing New Horizons. Now, I really don't know which of these franchises that the team behind Mario Maker works on, but it wouldn't surprise me if they wanted to work on some of those other franchises and then put a Switch 2 edition out for Mario Maker 2. A lot of this really does depend on what their schedule looks like. What do they prioritize? What do they want on the console first? What have they been working on? A lot of stuff that we just can't know right now. So I would say that it is incredibly likely for them to put a Switch 2 edition of this game on the console, but it's been so long since the last game that it makes me think they have to be working on Mario Maker 3. And this game sold 8 million units, which is a pretty big success. But it wasn't as big of a success on the Wii U. Sure, that game sold less because of the overall numbers and the numbers of people who bought a Wii U and just didn't buy Mario Maker because they didn't have a Wii U. But for the Switch to sell over 155 million units and Mario Maker to have been such a big phenomena on the Wii U, and then for it not to really translate for the Switch, I just wonder if they don't think it's worth it yet to make a sequel to this game, or if they just want to wait until they have more ideas, because Mario Maker 2, a lot of people were wondering, oh, what do you do from there, right? Slopes are a big thing, like, how do you add more? Now with Mario Wonder, they can really try to expand the Mario Maker universe and just let those games coincide with each other. There is obviously way more they could add, but how much is too much, you know? I think it's a lot of development time, a lot of development thought, and a game that they have really thought about for a while if they are going to do it. So if they are going to do it, it would be within the next 3 to 4 years and not have a Switch 2 edition alongside that, because it's been long enough to where I think if they want to make Mario Maker 3, they will. Then we've got Kirby and the Forgotten Land, which is already confirmed to get a Switch 2 edition. Link's Awakening already confirmed for a free upgrade. Mario Jamboree already confirmed. Clubhouse Games 51 Worldwide Classics, another game that we already know is coming to the Switch 2 as a free upgrade. Next we've got a very interesting one, Donkey Kong Tropical Freeze. I am very torn on this game because obviously Donkey Kong Bonanza is going to get the spotlight this year. And they've highlighted Donkey Kong's brand new design a ton. They have just totally highlighted how Donkey Kong is moving forward into a new era. So why would they then want to go back and redo his old model or keep it the same and then put it on the Switch as a Switch 2 edition? I just don't know if they want to go back and retroactively change Retro Studios' work. Now, they'll do whatever they want. Let me be very clear here. They will do whatever the heck they think is best, and that means if they want to go back and change his model, or just leave it alone and put it on the Switch 2 as a new edition, that is what they'll do. But I really do think if they want to be smart, they're just going to move forward with a new 2D Donkey Kong at some point and leave these old Donkey Kong Country 2D games on the Switch 1, and you can just play it backwards compatible. I really do wish that they would update this game for the Switch 2, but it doesn't make a whole lot of sense in my opinion for either parties. Next up, we've got Mario Tennis Aces, and I'm just going to include every sports game on here. There's no way. This is not happening. They're just going to develop a new sports game for the Switch 2, charge you $70 for it, and really, it's going to be a steal for them because people are going to buy it. The same people who love these games are going to buy it, and the same people who criticize them are going to criticize, and hopefully, they live up to the standard of a Switch 2 type game, but I just think they're going to focus on brand new games and just get way more money. Next, we've got Kirby Star Allies, another game I would think would be a pretty easy free upgrade, but another game I also think they could just spit out a new 2D game as soon as possible. Kirby and the Forgotten Land was such a big deal, and obviously that is getting a Switch 2 edition, so it makes me think along with Kirby Air Riders, they're going to kind of relax on Kirby this year, and if they do something like this, they're just going to be a new 2D game next year. Then we've got The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword HD. This is a game I really don't think they're going to upgrade. It makes sense to do Breath of the Wild. It makes sense to do Tears of the Kingdom. Even the 2D games, it made sense for a free upgrade. I just don't think it makes sense for this particular game. Why? Well, it's an older game and they kind of already remastered it in that sense. Because it's the HD version, I don't know if they want to go back to that again. A lot of the Wind Waker Twilight Princess arguments have been, it just makes so much sense, right? It's a pretty easy port, just put it on the console. But they don't seem to want to do that, so I don't think they're going to change their minds specifically for Skyward Sword. Then we have Fire Emblem 3 Houses. Please, Nintendo, please do a Switch 2 edition for this game. It only makes sense. It makes so much sense, and not only does it make sense, but it is necessary. It is necessary. This game is a treasure. It's the highest selling Fire Emblem game ever. It's the best Fire Emblem game by a long shot in terms of story. I love this game. It's the only Fire Emblem game I've played, by the way. I'm not gonna act like I just know everything about the series, but it was so good, and I put so many hours, hundreds of hours, playing the story over and over again with different routes. This is one of the ugliest looking games on the Switch as well. Hardware wise, it could use a bump. It could really use a bump. Just fix the frame rate. Just fix the resolution. Don't let things pop in and out. Even the textures don't even need to change. Just fix the baseline of what this game needs to be. And add content for all I care. I know they're not going to, or just include the DLC in a free upgrade. That would be amazing. Please, Nintendo, do it. But I don't think they're going to do it. I don't think they're going to do it. If anything, they're going to slap me in the face and do Fire Emblem Engage instead, which would be so annoying. I just want to play 3 Houses on the Switch 2 in a better way. But it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen, but a man can dream. Then we've got Age of Calamity, and this is not the type of game I think they want to port over just yet. Age of Imprisonment is going to need to take the entire spotlight, and I don't know if they want to cannibalize those sales with an older game. It could be a free upgrade. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised to see it in like a free batch of upgrades this year, which makes it pretty likely, to be honest. It could come. I have mixed opinions about this because it really could be a free upgrade in which they don't really talk about it a lot, just like they didn't talk about any of these free upgrades that we're getting now, and they just could not market it. And then if you put it in on the Switch 2, then you'll see, oh wow, it's freely upgraded for me. Great. I think if they go that route of just not really talking about it, but freely upgrading it just to get people invested in the series, get people thinking about playing these types of games again, it makes sense to me. But at the same time, they've got a new game coming, right? They're going to want to put that in the spotlight. So I honestly think it's possible. It's very possible. I'm like 51% sure it'll be a free upgrade, but I could totally see me being wrong. Echoes of Wisdom is already confirmed. Then we've got 1-2-Switch, not happening. Then we've got Pikmin 4. This is worthy of a big discussion because I think this is the most likely game to get a Switch 2 edition. Pikmin has just unfortunately been the series that people love and just never gets new games. And this is the type of game that people loved on the Switch 1 that didn't sell all that well and could use a Switch 2 edition to not only make the amazing looking game look even better, but to incorporate mouse controls and to add in new content for a Switch 2 edition. Oh my goodness, this would cause a lot of hype. A lot of people would want to buy it. It would be a great new version and way to play this game. I think this is on my top of the list as one of the best Switch 2 editions they could possibly do. Pikmin 4 would be perfect on Switch 2. Then we've got the Paper Mario Origami King game, and I'm going to also include Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door remake. I think both those games are not going to happen. If they do happen, it would just be a free upgrade, and that could be one of those games in which they just put on with Age of Calamity. It's just a free upgrade that no one really talks about, but I think they're going to leave those games in the past, even though they're weird enough to where I think it does make sense. I just think they're going to move forward. Paper Mario doesn't tend to reference its old games very much, except for Thousand Year Door. It's like the only game that has ever been remade in the series, I believe. So moving forward, I think they're just going to try to just do a new game, right? It's kind of like a Mario sports game. Why do an older game when you could just do a new game and make more money? Then we've got Yoshi's Crafted World, a game I would have thought no way, no how, but it makes sense, honestly. It makes sense. It's a weird enough game. It's a game that no one cared about, just enough to make a free upgrade for this game. And they highlighted it in the Switch 2 Direct as the game that showed off how the Switch 2's loading time works a little bit better, so it makes me think maybe they're working on an edition for this game. Then there was that mess up with the icon of Yoshi's Woolly World being replaced by Crafted World. Who knows which one of those were supposed to be there if they slipped up and they're actually putting Yoshi's Woolly World on here, but either way, I think Yoshi will probably make it over as a free upgrade. Then we've got the Super Mario RPG remake. I don't think this is going to happen. Metroid Dread would be a phenomenal game, to be honest. It would be a phenomenal game to remaster, but I just don't think they're going to want to add new content to this game. It would be some sort of Switch 2 edition, sure, as a free upgrade, but with Metroid Prime 4 Beyond this year, they're just going to likely do a new 2D Metroid game within the next year or two. That's my prediction. I think they just leave this on the Switch 1. Then we've got Mario & Rabbids Sparks of Hope and in turn Kingdom Battle. Neither of those games will get free upgrades, I don't think either. We've got ARMS, which is obviously getting one, and then we've got Xenoblade Chronicles 2. Now, as a huge Xenoblade fan, let me talk about each and every one of these Xenoblade games and my thoughts on their likelihood. First of all, I want all of these games to get upgrades. Do I think it could happen? Absolutely. I think Monolith Soft could just be awesome and give all of these games free upgrades. And which games need them the most? To be honest, I think Xenoblade Chronicles 2 needs it the most. And if they were to do this, that would be the game I think they want to highlight because it's the highest selling game in the series. Whether you like it or not, as a Xenoblade fan, it is the highest selling game because it came out within the first year of the Switch's life and people got hyped. Xenoblade is a huge series for Nintendo in terms of story and fan base. It may never crack that 4 million mark, but it will always have those dedicated fans day one. I wouldn't be surprised if Monolith Soft said, we're going to give you free upgrades for all of these games. And of course, for Xenoblade Chronicles X specifically, people saw that there was an upgrade in that game, like the code itself, to where it could go up to 4K. And obviously that's the most recent Xenoblade game to have been released for Nintendo, so I think that game is also pretty likely. Then you've got Xenoblade Chronicles 1, probably the most beloved game in the series that people love, and it was already remade, so just put it on the Switch too, that should be easy. Then Xenoblade 3, the newest in the actual series itself. I adore this game, people love it, it's the best in the series by a lot for most people. And I just don't know if they're going to do all of them or just one of them. If they do one of them, I'm putting my bets on Xenoblade Chronicles X. Even though 2 is the one that needs it the most, I think X is the most likely to receive one. But if they decide only to do one, that's the one they'll go with. But if they decide to do any more than just one, I think they have to do all of them together and release it in one big Xenoblade upgrade. Because it's a continuous story, right? How can you do one without doing the others? It just doesn't make sense. That's why I think X is the most likely, because it's so different and doesn't really need to be told through the other lenses of the story. You don't have to play the other 3 to play X, it's just a standalone game. So if they were to do it, it would be X, but if they were to do a bunch of them, it would be all of them, and that would be amazing. And maybe I'm just hoping here, copium here, but I really do think they could do all of them, and that's what I'm going to hedge my bets on. Then we've got Pikmin 3 Deluxe. I don't think they're going to do this game. The mouse controls would work well, but I think Pikmin 4 would be the game they do for that. Then we've got Captain Toad Treasure Tracker. Obviously, that game is already getting a free upgrade. Big Brain Academy, we know that game is also getting one. Then we've got Mario and Luigi Brothership, a very, very interesting title that released last year in November. It was very, very, very mixed upon release. Most people went to bat for it, but a lot of people also really criticized it as well. It wasn't just IGN. Many people didn't like this game, including myself, to be honest. And for this game to be so small in scope, I can't believe how bad it ran. It just didn't run very well. The frame rate was really bad, and the resolution was fine, but a little bit shaky at times. I just wasn't a fan of how it performed, and it didn't make me want to keep going even though the story wasn't that good. However, I do think if they were to do any sort of RPG Mario game, it would be Brothership, to give it a second chance, give it some more hype. I don't think they would add content. I think it would be more of a free upgrade type of deal. So even though I'm going to say no, this won't get one, I'm going to say it's the most likely of the RPG Mario games. Then we've got Luigi's Mansion 2 HD. No shot. If Luigi's Mansion 3 isn't getting it, 2 HD is not getting one. We've got Miitopia. I think that's just weird enough for them to do it. Tomodachi Life coming up soon, so I think within the next year they could say, hey, a Switch 2 edition of Miitopia is coming. So get that, get Tomodachi Life, get all your Mii love in right now. The Switch 2 has Miis. Then we've got Fire Emblem Engage, which did not sell nearly as well as I thought, 1.6 million units. I think this is the most likely Fire Emblem game to get a Switch 2 edition, but I'm going to say no, they're just going to work on a new Fire Emblem game. We've got Kirby's Return to Dreamland Deluxe, similarly to Star Allies, just a new 2D game would probably work a lot better. We've got WarioWare. I think it's just weird enough to where it would get one, but it's also just weird enough in terms of the mouse controls and new things the Switch 2 could do with a new WarioWare game, to where they might just decide, cut their losses on the old ones, and just make a new one. Then we've got Princess Peach Showtime. One of my very first videos ever was reviewing this game, and I did not review it well. I didn't like this game at all. I really didn't, and most people didn't. It was too childish, in my opinion, and I know you might be saying, oh, it's a Peach game, right? But Mario is for everyone, right? It's for all ages. So for Peach to have been so unfortunately marketed towards a very young, specific kind of audience, I think they could have just gone a little further. I think it could have been a mass appeal kind of game. So for me, I'm not even interested, but I think it could be pretty likely. I think it is. I'm going to say they will give this game a free Switch 2 edition. Makes perfect sense for them to want to push this even more, for people to get a better, higher frame rate, for more people to get invested. I don't think it's sold well enough for them to care about it, but hey, neither did Brain Age or Game Builder Garage, right? So this seems weird enough and interesting enough to want to hype it up for them to keep it on the Switch 2. Game Builder Garage, we already know has one. Mario vs. Donkey Kong. I think this is another one that is very, very likely to get a Switch 2 edition. It could add more levels, it could add a bunch more stuff, but will they change the Donkey Kong model? That's where it comes in here. All of this stuff with Donkey Kong now makes me like cringe because I don't know what they're gonna do. But just ignoring that problem, they'll do whatever they want to do with that, maybe even just leave it alone. I think this is a perfect game for Switch 2 to have a free upgrade. The final game on this list is Metroid Prime Remastered. What are they going to do here? Metroid Prime 4 Beyond is coming out this year with a Switch 2 edition. Do they want to push Metroid Prime Remastered? Do they want to make Prime 2 and 3 for the Switch 2? Are they, as the rumors say, co-developing Prime 4 with a Prime 5? There's a lot to consider here. Retro Studios will do right by the customer. I believe that. I believe they want to do what is best for us. So honestly, in my opinion, I think it makes sense for them to do a Prime Remastered Switch 2 upgrade. I think it makes perfect sense for them to want to put it on the Switch 1 and the Switch 2, to have both of those audience available to access this series, and to want to play it with the mouse controls. Because of course you could just buy it from the Switch 1, put it in the Switch 2, and play it backwards compatible, but if you play Prime 4 first, as a new person to the Switch 2 or new person to the Metroid series at large, and you get used to those mouse controls, it's going to be really janky and really weird to go back to Metroid Prime Remastered with just basic controls. I'm going to go out on a limb and say Metroid Prime Remastered is very, very likely to get a Switch 2 edition. Woof, that was a lot of games. So, make sure you let me know down below, what games are your favorite, which ones do you want to see, do you think what I said makes sense, what did I miss here? Let me know all that and more down below in the comments. Make sure you like and subscribe if you enjoyed today's video. Click the notification bell to know exactly when I upload all of my videos, and consider joining my membership program to get early access to my videos and support the channel at large. Click on the left side of your screen to see why the top 10 best-selling Switch games sold as well as they did, and click on the right side of the video if you want to hear my story on how I got my Switch 2 pre-order. It was pretty crazy. Thank you once more for making it to the very end of the video. You are amazing, and I thank you so much. This has been Ray's Nintendo Talk. I have been Ray, and I will see you all in the next video. Have a great day.